Welcome to the preview review. This time we're focusing on the crowd-funded independent comics project Damegang. This is actually a suggestion by a viewer that I take a look at Damegang. Shout out to Mr. Von Stugel, who also apparently likes the bands Bandmaid and Sabaton and enjoys playing Bulletstorm. Mr. Von Stugel is the one who pointed me to Damegang 2, which continues the origin story begun in the original Damegang. Now, both this and the prior campaign are complete, but they are still available. Or, yeah, the first and second issues are still available for purchase through this Indiegogo campaign, and I will provide the link to that in the video description. Damegang is the creation of Billy Nunez. This is taken from his website, billynunez.com. He's an artist born in the Dominican Republic and then grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. He sounds a lot like Alexander Hamilton. Immigrants, we get the job done. Much of his work is inspired by science fiction and fantasy movie, video games, and comic books of the 80s and 90s. Ah, my heyday. He continues to work this day as an illustrator and designer. And let's take a look at the price points of entry for Damegang. For one copy of Damegang number 2, along with some stickers and a small poster, we're looking at $25. That's par for the course for a independent crowd-funded comic book project. Now, I'm a little bit perplexed here by the double offering because you're getting both covers of Damegang and the stickers and the small poster, but it's a $30 price hike just to get the second issue of Damegang. Now, you're not getting any different content within the book. It's just a different cover, and you're just getting whatever, the other cover is. You'll note also on the starter side, you don't get to choose whether you get cover A or cover B. That's something different from other campaigns that I've seen where they normally let you get to choose the cover. So I guess there's some sort of, I don't know, maybe print to order thing coming on here. But in any case, the fact that you're paying more than you would for a single issue plus stickers and small poster, and you're getting 30 and it's costing you $30 for that second copy, that doesn't really make much sense to me. And the same holds true for the catch-up program, which allows you to get Damegang 1 and 2. Now, in this case, it's more reasonable in this case because Damegang number 1 is the number 1 issue. It's not unreasonable at all to expect that to cost more because you're going for a back issue, essentially. But, to go for plus $30 on just another copy of the book having a different cover, that just seems a little bit on the steep side. So I'm kind of perplexed by that anti-discount on the pricing. Now, Damegang is the story of 4 women who have powers over earth, water, fire, or air, earth. All right, let's just read it off the screen, shall we? Water, earth, air, and mind, apparently. And you'll notice there's something interesting about these women's statistics. They are all around 9 feet tall and weigh in the area of 650 pounds. Now, you would think, okay, now is that something that was done to them as a result of their getting superpowers in the first place? But actually, no. And that's one of the quirky things about Damegang is that it's set in a world where, just as in our world, some people are born with dwarfism, in this world of Damegang, some people are, and some women specifically, are born with giantism, which makes them super tall and extra thick. This is one of those just quirky things that tickles the heck out of me. It's kind of like the when I was talking about the Colossals and their world in which a giant cataclysm brought the world together in harmony instead of turned it into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's nice little twists like this on reality that really that really set the stage for creativity and get the what if juices flowing. So kudos to Billy Nunez on creating this particular twist on reality to set the stage for his comic. I really love this. And it also kind of gives us the sense that we're not going to be taking ourselves super seriously for this. When I first looked at the art for Damegang, I was a little bit worried that, okay, here we're going to have this this universe in which you have these incredibly hot women filling these superheroic roles, and we're just going to take it on faith that this is a serious like superhero slash ninja slash something book. But to have this giantism built into the worldview, it already kind of gives you the permission to not take things terribly seriously. And indeed, from the very first page, where you're basically being slapped in the face with her butt, you've got you've got this sense of, okay, let's just have fun with this, and that's good. That's actually really really good. I remember when I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, and I was watching it with the writer's commentary. And there's a scene in there where Orlando Bloom, where he's come to ask for somebody's hand in marriage. So he's like fiddling around with some things, and something breaks off in his hand, and he's desperately trying to put it back in place before the girl's father arrives. And the writer doing the commentary actually said, "This is where we give you permission to laugh." And I feel like this opening scene, we're given permission to laugh. To let us know that we don't have to, take this as a dead serious comic book like something coming out of the big two. We can just basically have fun with this. So we start off with this woman of unnatural proportions. That waist to hip ratio would probably break off in any other real world situation. But like I said, this is a book that just gives us permission right off the bat not to take it terribly seriously. She's making a challenge to some person who is as big as her, but apparently not made out for a fight. And so that other person takes off, and she complains that, she's not going to get a fight out of that person. And then there's a normal sized guy right next to her. Now, one of the things that I notice about this is that on the spec sheet, it was said that she's around 9 feet tall. Well, how tall does that make him then? I can't imagine that makes him any taller than 5 feet, based on the fact that his head is only reaching up like halfway up her body. So I'm a little bit concerned about just the proportions. I mean, yes, this guy could be a particularly short guy at 5 feet, but we're actually going to run into another guy later in the comic who's going to be about half the protagonist size as well. And that is leading me to think that maybe the stats are a little bit off. Maybe these are supposed to be 12-foot high women as opposed to 9-foot high women. But in any case, we're still having fun with it. So the guy basically complains, "What did she do to you?" And then she literally headbutts him. literally hits him in the head with her butt and sends him packing. So that's another cute moment here. So off she goes, disappointed that she wasn't able to find a sparring partner. And what we're going to find over the next couple of pages is that she was training to be a professional fighter. She was training to be MMA or something like that under the tutelage of her father. And when she turned out that she was a giant, then she was unable to enter that world. They don't have apparently any MMA category that includes giantesses. So instead, she's got herself a nice little house that has a swimming pool in the back that's been modified for her giant size, and she is meditating at the bottom of the pool and recounting her past history. She was not always giant. Apparently, this is something that hits you when you go into puberty, and so for a while, her father was training her to become a MMA style fighter, so some other kind of athlete, something where she could compete. And she believes that her father most likely did not know anything about her impending giantism, on account of why would he have bothered to train her and all this stuff if she wouldn't have been able to compete in it later. So down below you can even see an award where she picked up a trophy. So later on, she gets into a fight that is so where she just absolutely devastates her opponent, punches her opponent's headgear clean off, and then that lands her opponent down badly to the point where you get the doctors, checking her neck up there. And I just want to draw your attention up in the upper right to where the one paramedic type person is like putting his fingers on either side of her head. that is such a well done scene right there. And it was this scene right here that made me realize that I had absolutely nothing to say about the artwork from the point of the beginning of the book forward. This is really top tier artwork for an independent comic. This is top tier stuff right here. This is stuff where, anybody, Image, Dark Horse, one of the other things, Scout. I wouldn't necessarily say that this art belongs in the big two, because Marvel and DC, they have more of a more realistic style to them. But then again, seeing some of the stuff that's in their books, I mean, they could actually probably be well served to have someone like Billy Nunez drawing for them. But I would say that this, at least, you could not complain if you were matched with this artist, with this level, this caliber of artwork in your comic. This is really, really good stuff, both from the storytelling quality, the panel to panel transitions, the characters within the panels doing what they're supposed to be doing, and just little touches like this where you have the doctor up top gently trying to figure out what is the status of this kid's neck. Now, I do think that in terms of medical continuity, the kid should probably have been in a neck brace no matter what the doctor decided. I think there's probably a little bit of a goof here, just not having her in a neck brace when they're carrying her out. But at this point, I feel like there's just absolutely been nothing to complain about as far as the art quality goes. Now, as far as the writing quality goes, there's a problem coming up right here. Now you can kind of see this background kind of reflecting what we were seeing prior in the pool. This is kind of matching the walls of the pool. And so I kind of feel like from this page, we're getting these pool markings on the wall, so we should be transitioning back to the pool. And indeed, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's really much more to say about this particular scene. She's hurt her competitor. She's and who knows whether that's a function of her giantism, or she's just really damn good at being a fighter. And that becomes her conflict over the next few pages. But instead of jumping from here back to the pool, we actually go into another 2-page sequence where we have her and her father, and now she's clearly in giant mode, or getting there. She is they're both being scolded, saying, well, hey, hold on a second. At birth, you're supposed to be informed whether or not your child is a giant. And he's saying that he had no such documentation for it, or he lost the documentation and can't prove that there was no such documentation on the forms. So they're basically saying, he's basically trying to defend it and say, well, this is an accident. There's no way I could have known that my daughter had giantism, because they never told me. And this guy is basically threatening them, saying, hey, this girl's in a coma now. She could die. We may throw your daughter in jail. You're going to be disgraced, etc., etc. This 2-page sequence does seem a bit like overkill, unless maybe this character or the girl whom she put in the coma are going to be recurring later on. But I don't really feel like these particular pages actually needed to be in the book, because all they're basically doing is saying it was a very, very serious thing that she was competing while having this giantism condition, whether or not it had manifested up to that point, which the father denies. And the girl was seriously injured, which we already knew, and she was threatened with jail time for this, which I don't know how that plays into the rest of the story. So it could be that there are elements from this 2-page sequence, but more often than not, I just tend to think that this is fleshing out beyond what we actually need to see. And any time that you can reclaim a couple of pages so that you can flesh out story in another section of the book with those 2 pages, you should take those opportunities. So, like I was saying, if you look at this page here, where it's transitioning back to a water scene, and then after you get past these 2 pages, it goes it goes to the pool at this point. So there's a much better transition, I think, from this page back to the pool than with those other pages in between, because she basically summarizes she went from 5 feet to 9 feet in a few months. Her dad said that he didn't know she was a giantess, and now she's questioning whether her dad knew or not. And this kind of sets up through this point. This kind of sets up her prime contradiction. What it is that she's questing for? Why is it that she's going out and looking for fights? It's because she doesn't know at this point whether or not her fighting skills or her giantism were what put the girl in the hospital. And if she could figure that out, well, maybe she'd have some sort of certainty in her own mind about whether or not she actually was as good a fighter as she thought that she was. And so up to this point, she's a rather sympathetic character, and she has this tragic quest that she's on that's obviously driving her to do silly things like challenging girls who, have no interest in fighting her whatsoever to a fight. And it just makes you wonder, okay, is she in the throes of some interior? Is she in the throes of this interior struggle? And can we feel sorry for her on that account? Everything up to this point has been really, really good in establishing the character. And then we hit this one panel, though. And this one panel kind of changes everything, because finally she says, F that, I was just that good. Now she's basically saying, no, I don't think that it was my giantism that was responsible. I really, really think that it was my fighting ability that put that girl in the hospital, and I'm going to prove it. And moreover, she's already lined up other people, other women, to challenge for this, and she is going to go off and fight them now. So she's heading off to this gym where she's already got her next target. So she's very single-minded in her determination, and she's got this sense of, watch me do this, watch me prove myself, and here is where the book kind of turns on a sour note, because it gets worse into the next couple of pages, but here you kind of see that this is more of it's less of a cry for help and more of a wish fulfillment kind of scenario. She's wanting to put her own mind at ease, even if it's going to be putting others' minds at unrest or making them fear for their safety, as we see in the next couple of pages, where we have her taking this punching bag away from a normal-sized opponent and using it in such a way that is unsafe around the opponent who was previously using it. So you've got this normal-sized person who is now in danger on account of her actions. She's only thinking of herself. She's not taking care of or taking care of the needs of anybody else. She becomes a very, very anti-heroic figure in these few pages. And moreover, once she gets to the woman who she's determined to confront and try and goad into a fight, she immediately appeals to that person's self-interest, saying, "Hey, you're doing this for clicks. We could get even more clicks for you if you spar with me. So let's have a fight." And so they go ahead and have a fight. She goes and gives her a love tap on the behind to get the thing started. And I still, one of the things that you'll notice about the quality of the art here is that not only am I not mentioning anything about the scene to scene panel transitions, I mean, even the fact that we've got a full page spread here using up an entire page to show this particular scene, I don't even mind this, because usually I'll tell you that this is kind of a waste of a page to have a full page spread like this. I'm just kind of like, wow, I'm kind of glad to have seen this, especially with the part of the iPad showing this particular photo or showing the camera representation of that. I wonder how difficult that was to do. I'm so unfamiliar myself, as you could probably tell by my setup, with all the kinds of Photoshop and other kinds of presentation products that I don't even know what it would take to get that kind of thing. But I'm just really, really impressed by the quality of the artwork, if I haven't mentioned it 1,000 times already. So going on, we're in the fight. They're pretty equally matched, and when taunting her to upper game, you have a lot of trading blows, and look at the use of the 9 panel grid as well. I mean, this is where you can compactly get a lot of information onto the page. I mean, there are people out there today who settle for doing like quadrants, or who settle for even doing a couple of half page shots and thinking they've shown you a battle. This really shows you a battle. You get the feeling like time is really passing, and you've got these people squaring off and landing blows and trading blows. And I remember one person who got to it was Keith Giffen, who was like a master of the 9 panel grid. He was like, you're like the one guy who appreciates that. But yeah, if you can pack a lot of information into your page, the more the better. And this just shows you, even when all you're doing is showing just little portions of your characters, you can pack so much information onto the page just by gridding it out and having some scene to scene transitions. This is just really a great page. I mean, I'm so heartened just to see that the 9 panel grid is still being used in certain comics. And then finally, we get to the point where the her opponent lands a blow and draws some blood, and that infuriates her to the point where she lashes out with a kick. And I love this panel. I love how this transitions from the cartoon style to like a manga style. so that it's just an absolute vicious lash out that you're just afraid to see how badly this one lands. It's so great. And then you have some humor here to lighten it up, where this guy's head goes like right up her ass. Oh, and that's another shout out also to the height proportions things. I mean, unless she was 12 feet tall, I don't see how it is that that particularly could have happened. Um, so now they get into an angry confrontation, and she's chewing her out and walking away. But then she also sees that she has gotten a lot of praise and hits, and the people want her back, and so she's thinking, okay, well, maybe I should be able to use her. And then our protagonist, such as she is, having proved to herself that she can still fight, now goes back to her home and prepares for what is going to be her next fight, which is going to be against a man and giantess thief pair who have been robbing artifacts. And I presume that one of these artifacts is going to be what gives her and 3 other women their powers. But she's basically gearing herself up for a new fight with this pair and saying, I am going to stop them. Just watch me. And again, it puts the focus on her. Like, this is all about me. It's entirely about me. It's not even about the other girls yet who are in the Damegang, which I believe one of them is this woman here, and one of them will be this thief here. So it's so centered on her that she has kind of a problem being a likable character because she's so incredibly self-centered. And that's one of the things that I kind of worry about in this book. Is part of this book going to be a journey for her getting out of this self-centered mode into a more heroic mode as she acquires powers and as she's having to team up with these other women in doing whatever it is they do. It's kind of hard to see at this point, but it's kind of a turn for the worse in her character to see herself as so completely self-absorbed. But maybe that's all part of the point. So let's get on to the praises and suggestions. Praises. First of all, this world of occasional giant women is a real hoot. It is a great creative leap to go into that world and to see kind of the ins and outs of that. I mean, I know we don't get to see a lot of it fleshed out, other than seeing how she's having to deal with living in a normal sized house and having had to modify the swimming pool in the back for her own size. There's also a scene in which you see a special motorcycle that's made for a giantess, and people saying, "Wow, look how big that thing is," and it's just it's a nice thing that lets you get into the point that you don't have to take this comic so seriously. You know, let yourself go, let your suspension of disbelief go, and have fun with this comic book. It's got some good humor in it. And it's got such top tier independent comic art. I mean, I'm just blown away by how consistently good this artwork is. Page to page, panel to panel, making use of pretty much all the different kinds of techniques, using the manga transition there, using the 9 panel grid, using a splash page when it actually makes sense to do so. I mean, oh gosh, I mean, this was a joy to go through and read. Um, on the suggestion side, first, looking at the price scheme, seeing the anti-discount, where if you're buying more copies of the book, you're actually paying more than you would for a single copy. That's just a weird way to price it out. Number two, the height proportions should make more sense. If you're going to say that these are 9 foot tall women, then you're the two or three guys who are actually shown in the book are what, 4.5 feet, 5 feet high. Probably need to just spec that out a little better and peg them at 12 feet. The medical continuity for that one scene with the neck brace, the guy's gingerly touching her neck to try and get it into alignment, but then there's no neck brace on her going forward. I thought that was just a minor mistake, but it's still there. Compress the exposition so you leave room for more story. And this really has to do with those 2 pages that really did nothing more but overstate the obvious. That yes, she has this strength on account of being a giantess. Is that something that was a factor during the fight? Well, we don't necessarily know. And she does explain all of this outside of those 2 pages. So there's not, unless there's some information in there that I can't tell is going to be reused somewhere else in the comic later on. Those 2 pages are just kind of like, they feel like filler, as opposed to valuable story content. So those 2 pages worth of space could have been reclaimed to flesh something out later on. And just make sure, when you go through your comics in the future, look for pages like that. Look for scenes where you might be over explaining what went on in a particular area. And then, is your hero a sociopath? Because my goodness, I was feeling a lot of pity and a lot of empathy for the protagonist character, up until the point where all of a sudden she just got all cocky as hell and ready to go into the next fight, because it seemed like her whole personality just devolved down onto this whole idea of, am I actually good enough as a fighter? And I am going to hurt whoever I need to, intimidate whoever I need to, mangle whoever I need to in order to figure this out for myself. At that point, the story really became kind of an "it's all about me," and she even says, "Watch me, watch me." It's really an all eyes on her kind of mentality that makes her an unattractive character, and you don't want to get your reader too terribly turned off about by the person's attitude that close into the story, where you haven't really introduced anyone else that the reader could hook his or her emotions on and say, okay, well, how about the girl who's doing videos of herself? Maybe the 2 pictures, for example, maybe the 2 pages that had been going into the over exposition on your protagonist's flashback scene, maybe those 2 pages could have gone into more of the relationship between the woman taking her video and the guy, who was filming the video. Maybe there could have been some of that. There was certainly enough room for expert space. Oh, and by the way, do you notice that I'm using terms like protagonist, woman taking the video? Why am I doing that? Because you're completely blowing the name game. You have not named any of your characters all the way through this 27-page preview. Now, this is something that I got on to Irene Strachowski for her Fiendish comic, but that was about one character in the book. One character who was like a supporting character who was not named all the way through the 22-page preview. There are no character names through any of these 27 pages. I don't think I saw a single character name. I went back and looked, and I don't see anywhere. The only place that I could find any of their names was on the stat sheet earlier, where it was talking about their heights and their powers. But that's not in the book. You got to give these people names. You got to let people know what to call these characters. So yeah, don't be afraid to toss out names. Toss out little items on a desk or somewhere that says, congratulations, name of character for your third week in the office or something. Just something that's going to get that character's name across, and so I don't have to keep saying things like the protagonist, the blonde one, the girl who gets into fights all the time, and then the video girl, the tattooed girl, the black girl even. I mean, you don't want to reduce your characters to these little things about them. You want them to be known, and I don't know any of your characters as yet. So yeah, do pay attention to naming your characters and giving readers, something to hook your characters' identities onto up close and soon. So that is my review of the first 27 pages of Damegang #1. Damegang #2, the campaign is still open, although it has been fully fulfilled, but you can still get in your orders for Damegang 2, which continues the story of the Damegang from Damegang #1. And if you want to catch up on the whole series, there is the catch up, the anti-discounted catch up. But again, it's more understandable here that to put a back issue into the batch is going to up the price, maybe even beyond the price of the current issue. It is a back issue. You do expect those to cost a little more. So this is a decent price. $55 will get you Damegang 1 and 2, along with some stickers and a small poster. So if you want to get in on that, go ahead and click the link in the video description. You'll also be given the link to the 27-page preview in case you want to read that a little closer. And that has been my preview review for Damegang, and thank you for watching. If you have anybody who's out there who wants a YouTube shout out, if you have a particular lettered preview that you want me to review and see how that measures up, do send that to me in the comments, and you'll get a mention in the video, and you'll get a shout out for your favorite property there. So thanks again to the user. Let's go back up and give one last shout out to Mr. Von Stugel for suggesting I look at Damegang. This was absolutely a fun comic to review, and kudos to Billy Nunez for bringing it to life. So thanks again. Preview review of Damegang is complete. Do subscribe to my channel for future preview reviews as well as my other videos, and I will talk to you later.